Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast. I'm your host, Simone, and this week we're talking about art and fear. So many of us have been afraid. If you've never been afraid, let me know in the comments because I'd love to know what that's like, honestly. Of course, we have a definition. And so Merriam-Webster defines fear as an unpleasant, often a strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. But I'm sure that even without this definition, most of us kind of knew that. It's why I wanted to have this episode. Fear and even anxiety, which it sometimes shows up as, is so very common, and it often can sometimes feel like insurmountable. But sometimes it is possible to overcome fear, and that is what I want to look at today. So with the works of art that I'll be discussing in this episode, we're going to be exploring just that. So fear, what it does to a person, how our characters sort of choose to overcome it, and all of that type of stuff. If you have any works of art that mean a lot to you right now, let me know about them in the comments. I'd love to check out new art and see some of the cool things that are out there that I might not be aware of. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, all of that jazz, so that we can feed this algorithm. And with that being said, let's get started. Now, our first work of art is the TV show Courage the Cowardly Dog. This is a show that ran from 1999 to 2002 on Cartoon Network. It was created by John Dilworth and ran for about 4 seasons. Now, I won't be going into the detail of every single episode of this show because that would be a lot, and we'd be here all day because there's I think at least 50 episodes, so that'd be a lot. However, the episodes do sort of follow a similar pattern. Excuse me. And so I want to kind of describe that pattern because that is what's most important for our conversation today. Now, this show follows Courage, who was abandoned as a puppy and found by Muriel, who lives with her husband Eustace in the middle of nowhere. Now, each episode sort of follows Muriel or Eustace, sometimes both of them, but it follows them. They both kind of get into some kind of unexpected or unsuspecting bind, they don't even realize how much of a problem something is going to be. And Courage, who is just off almost every episode, is just beside himself with fear. He's terrified of what's happening, what could happen, and all of that. And even though he is often beside himself with fear, he is still willing to do what he can to save them. So sometimes that's going to the computer to research a solution. Sometimes that's calling the proper authorities and having people come and kind of handle whatever is going on at their house. And sometimes it's just buckling down and facing the fear head on if it means saving the person he loves, which is Muriel most often. In the face of so many threats, Courage so very often chooses to do what he can, even despite all the fear that he kind of has and is within himself. He does what he can to save the people he loves. And it's actually in fact that one of Courage's sayings that he says a lot in the show is the things I do for love, before going head first against whatever scary creature is upon them, kind of in that episode. And this is what happens each episode. So Courage is afraid, and sometimes very often his fear gets the better of him, which is not unlike our next character in our next work of art. Our next work of art is the movie Orion in the Dark. This movie was released in February of this year, so that's 2024, and it was directed by Sean Charmatz. It's based on the children's book by the same name, but that book's written by Emma Yarlett, and so you know the drill because it's so very recent. Spoilers ahead because it's, like I said, it's really new. It came out literally 2024. So I'll try not to spoil everything so that if you want to watch it, after the fact, after you hear my description, you can still do so, and you'll see some things for the very first time. But with that being said, Orion in the Dark follows 11-year-old Orion, who is really anxious and is scared of almost everything. But his biggest fear, even among all the ones that he does has, is his fear of the dark. One night, dark comes to meet Orion. So dark is like a sentient being that represents all of darkness. Now this dark comes to meet Orion, and like because Orion's being afraid of a dark, is that like fear is affecting dark, like it's kind of making him upset. So Dark wants to try to convince Orion to not be afraid of the dark anymore. So he invites Orion on an adventure and promises to change his mind about the dark on this adventure. And so throughout this adventure, Dark and Orion do a lot of things, and Orion even gets to meet some of the other nighttime friends, like throughout that night. Now at this point, we do know that this is adult Orion kind of telling the story to his daughter Hypatia. And so we're back. Now I'm going to go back into the story. And where we're at in the story, despite all of this adventure and all this fun that Orion has on the adventure, he kind of still talks about how like he still prefers light to dark. Like he'd much rather be in the light or the daytime than like at night, because night is still very terrifying and dark is still very terrifying. And so like just like he talks about how things just feel safer when it's light out and like it's much warmer and it's like soothing almost. And so this upsets Dark, and he lets himself be disappeared. And so now we cut back to Hypatia and Orion, and she doesn't like, because that's kind of like in this story that Orion is telling his daughter, that sort of is the ending, that Dark is disappeared. And they're like, all right, end the story. And Hypatia though, she's like, she doesn't like that ending to the story, and she wants to help Orion think up a new ending to the story. And so in this new ending, Hypatia meets up with Orion to help him figure out the solution to find Dark again. And they figure out together, they're able to figure out that to find Dark again, they'll be able to find it in Orion's subconscious because he's so afraid of Dark. So they know they'll be able to, like, once he goes to sleep, they can find him and retrieve Dark that way. And so they put Orion to sleep. Orion goes to sleep. Of course, Dark is there in his subconscious, and upon finding Dark, they do try to bring him back to the real world. But when they try to do that, a black hole sort of appears, and it's trying to suck everything and everyone into the hole, especially Dark, because Dark's not supposed to exist. And so to save someone, to save someone he's come to care about, which is Dark, Orion actually jumps into the dark hole, because the hole has kind of gotten like sucked the people he care about into it, and so he jumps into the hole so that he can go and retrieve the person that he cares about, and he jumps in to try to save him. And then in doing so, they save Dark, and they restore everything to kind of how it was before. Now that's all I'm going to say about the movie. There is a little more to the film, so if you want to check out the movie, I highly encourage you to do so, and I highly encourage you to watch it. It's a really, really cute film. It can be found on Netflix. But yeah, here in this work of art, we come across another character who's fearful of a lot of things, and those fears sometimes get the better of him. And that fear can do that. Fear has a way of doing that a lot, actually. Fear has a way of paralyzing you, and that's something we see with both Courage, from Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Orion from Orion in the Dark. We see both of these characters get so terrified that it sort of prevents them from doing anything about it. On more than one occasion, we see that over the episodes, like just throughout all of the episodes with Courage and Orion, who is so terrified of so many things that it impedes on his way of life. Like, it's affecting friendships, it's affecting relationships, it's affecting just how he wants to live his life. His fear is so feels so almost insurmountable to him that it is affecting everything else in his life. And so fear just has a way of getting in the way of doing the things we want to do. It can be things we actually want to do. So like in the movie Orion, there's there's a relationship he wants to establish, but because he's so afraid of potentially being made fun of the person saying no, he doesn't do that, and he outright like tries to escape or get out of going on a field trip that like he's wanted to go on. And so like, and yeah, so that happens in Orion in the Dark. Excuse me. And like, or maybe like this fear is just getting in the way of having the quaint, relaxing lifestyle that you're used to, like in Courage the Cowardly Dog. He's a dog who lives a really nice life. Muriel takes really good care of him. And then every so often, whenever these episodes happen, some big scary thing comes and gets in the way of that. And he's like, I was just trying to have my usual good day. But alas, fear, and it's getting in the way. And so, yeah. Now, fear also has a way of seeming impossible to defeat. However, very often, we aren't entirely alone, even when we think we are. Take in Orion in the Dark, for example. Orion has the support of his parents, and when he hangs with Dark, he eventually has the support of the other nighttime friends and Dark, and they help him in the ways that they can. And maybe you don't have that same kind of support system to assist you with facing your fears, with trying to get over the anxieties you might have throughout your life. It's possible to also just look up resources for help, and like just get help in other ways. So like Courage did in Courage the Cowardly Dog, there are so many episodes where like the scary thing happens and Courage is like terrified and beside himself with fear, and he doesn't know what to do. And one of the first things he often does is he runs to the computer and he looks up something that can help him with getting over this big scary thing that's affecting him, and like it shows him the way. And when he can't get the help of anyone in the house, so like when Muriel is sort of like not taking him seriously, when Eustace is upset and yelling at him or not taking him seriously, he searches for resources online for ways to help him with whatever he was dealing with. And then if those resources aren't available online, he will call someone to come and help. Some type of authority, some type of organization that's able to come and take care of this big bad. And this is something that is like, especially now, like it's especially possible now if you consider like all of the things that is accessible online. Like there are communities and resources online for lots of things. It's just a matter of finding what's best and healthiest for you. And so also sometimes even after that, actually facing the fear still seems really daunting, and that is normal. Being scared and afraid is actually one of the most normal things to ever be. In fact, so like according to Psychology Today, fear is a vital response to physical and emotional danger that has been pivotal throughout human evolution. So sure, maybe the things that back in the like really, really far back in time, the things that they were afraid of probably don't look like the things we're afraid of or that make us anxious now, but that doesn't invalidate or make your fear any less of a very much normal response. But just because it's normal and just because it is something that everyone experiences, it doesn't actually mean it's impossible to like, not impossible, I guess. It doesn't mean that it's easy to deal with. Fear isn't exactly easy to deal with, even if you know that everybody sort of experiences it. Sometimes you have to feel this fear and do it anyway. It's a quote that they say in the movie Orion in the Dark, and in practicing it, in practicing that exact quote, he's able to save Dark. It's a quote that I have on my wall. Like, not just, I have it on my wall in my bedroom, and then I also have it on like sort of like in like a frame near my door, because I get anxious a lot, and it helps to remind me that like it's okay to just feel the fear and do it anyway. But yeah, if I let that anxiety get the better of me, if I let that fear stop me from doing the things I wanted to do, the things I want to explore, I wouldn't be where I am now. Now, maybe feeling the fear and doing it anyway still seems sort of intense and insurmountable. Maybe finding another way to address the fear or address your fear is necessary. Both Orion and Courage, they overcome their fears for the sake of someone they care about. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, one of Courage's well-known quotes is, "The things I do for love." And then after he does that, he goes and proceeds to save the people he cares about. He does what he has to save the people he cares about. It's so often in the show that Courage is at first seen running away from the issue or trying to escape and stay as far away from the problem as possible. And he's often trying to avoid that thing that is scaring him so terribly. But when Muriel is in danger, or it's something that would make Muriel, or when it's something that will make Muriel happy, he puts up with his fear and he pushes through it. So maybe an outside influence could be okay. Maybe that could be the influence you need to help you in like trying to address your own fear. And then eventually you can build on that after so much practice doing that to doing and facing your fears for yourself. But yeah, being afraid is normal. And this is by no means like me trying to force anyone to like embrace their fear, especially if you're not ready to address it. But maybe, just maybe, being afraid too can be an art like everything else. Now this week, for our awe moment, we have a piece of art from Twitter user at Pinnakitan. I'm gonna import an image here, and I'm also gonna link to the tweet with the photo in the description, so that if you'd like to see the photo yourself, absolutely go check it out. But I thought it was really cool, and it applies to what we're talking about. So it's an image of a dog who looks to be a bit afraid while trying to ride a bike, and the text on the image says, "Doing it scared is just as brave." And that's true. It's like what we've been talking about in this episode, actually. You don't have to be unafraid to do things, to attempt things, to try at the life that you want. You can be scared and be just as brave as someone who doesn't. You can feel that fear and you can do it anyway. And that's all I have for you today. Like, comment, subscribe, follow. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.